Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. It's Tuesday, the 11th of November. Thank you for joining me for the New Zealand weather forecast for the week ahead and the upcoming weekend, and also the start of next week now. So let's take a look at the satellite map. A lot of cloud around the country clearing away. There's a slightly more refreshing change for some regions today as a southwesterly wind comes on through, and the humid stuff we've been having eases back to some degree around the country. A lot of rain and more energy around Australia. They've actually got some wintry weather coming through for them over the next week, but we don't really have that until Friday, when there could be a bit of a brief cold change in the lower South Island. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But here is the air pressure map going into this evening. A small bit of low pressure near East Cape, nothing too much there. Really, we're seeing a fair bit of high pressure around. Bit of a messy system though, and you can see a bit of lower pressure inland, so we could still be seeing some inland downpours or showers. Hopefully we can get around some more around the Tongariro area with the fire burning there. But high pressure is certainly the main feature at the moment. But I got to say, the weather maps over the next week or two ahead are messy, chaotic. That doesn't necessarily mean stormy, but it does mean we're not really in that westerly flow that we were in over August and September and October, where it was fairly predictable what was heading our way. Now we're starting to see more lows to the north of New Zealand. We're seeing lows west of us, some of them east of us, and the high pressure systems, yes, they are coming in over the country. Got another one here starting to move on through, but even then it's a bit messy, and some of the high pressure coming through later into this month may be going well south of Australia. So we're just seeing, lows and highs a little bit all over the place rather than in perfect lines as they sort of were for a time. And in fact, this map shows you what I'm talking about. This is what it looked like over the last couple of months. A lot of high pressure further northwards, low pressure southwards, and the windy westerlies in the middle. Now we're starting to see a messier setup. So look, as we go to Wednesday, weak low pressure to the north of the country, dragging down once more humid subtropical wind, which we've been seeing off and on since this month started. It's warmer than average because of these airflows. And high pressure out here east of New Zealand, that is part of the reason we're seeing some of that warmer air moving through. So this is a pretty messy kind of weather map where you do have lows in the north and the south, and highs also in the north and in the south. So a bit of everything being moved around at the moment, and that means variable wind directions. They're going to change off and on over the next week or so, and rainfall coming through here and there. May not be for everybody though, as these messy kind of low pressure systems come through. And you can see the polar change I was talking about. That's been bringing some colder weather to Tasmania and Victoria by Wednesday, building southwest of New Zealand. On Thursday, and by the way, it builds for a while because high pressure here on Thursday spreads a ridge down into parts of the South Island, but this is still growing and heading our way for Friday. But low pressure covers the country here on Thursday. It's a messy system. It's not a very deep low. It's not very strong, producing significant severe weather, but there is the chance of some locally heavy falls as that moves on through. But the humidity should ease back once more to some degree. But even this next high, long way northwards, dragging air out of Queensland and New South Wales, and that could be sliding into New Zealand as we go to the very end of the week. In fact, this is it here on Friday coming through. So even if it's a bit of a southwesterly for some of you in the North Island, it's a warm southwesterly coming out of New South Wales and Queensland. And now the polar blast, it's not really a blast, I guess, but there's a bit of wind with it. Maybe some severe gales for a time around the mountains and the usual sorts of areas. And then the rain comes into the southwest, some of that spills over into Southland, and the temperatures drop as a result of that polar boundary coming in. To the north here, could see a few showers that are a little bit heavy as well, especially during the day. So much warmer in the north of New Zealand, although the whole country pretty much warm up to a certain point because the northwesterly winds will be blowing around the South Island, keeping your temperatures up. So here's what I mean about the temperature change. This is for Gore in Southland. Hello to any of our viewers from there. See the temperatures this week, 23 degrees tomorrow, down to 17 by Thursday, and by Saturday, your high only 13, your low is only 3, and then it really bounces back up again straight afterwards. So that cold change really isn't going to hang around too long. You can see these graphs in the free Weather Watch New Zealand app. Let's go into the weekend, the polar boundary being pushed away, the next high pressure zone coming in and pretty much covering the country, but still a few showers caught around the western side of the North Island, maybe one or two around Stewart Island and Fovo Strait. Otherwise, I think Saturday's going to be a pretty dry day around the country, but you never know, you might get a heavier downpour forming inland. And Sunday, the high moves out over the Chatham Islands, and now we've got the next kind of messy system with a weak low around the southern part of the Tasman Sea, but actually some further low pressure hanging around the Tasman as well. So as we go into Monday of next week, high pressure east of us with a small bit of low pressure inside of it near, or on the edge of it near the Chatham Islands. So you see what I mean by these messy sort of weather maps? That is one there. Subtropical wind from around the tropical islands of the South Pacific coming down and around New Zealand again. So it'll be a warm Monday. That's why you saw those temperatures lifting up around Southland despite that polar area coming through. And the polar boundary once more comes back into Victoria on Monday of next week. But we've got the warm subtropical winds. They have had a number of polar changes over the past few months. New Zealand has seen a real break in them as November started, and setups like this one, even though it's messy, is encouraging warmer airflows around New Zealand at the moment. So to make sense of the 7-day rainfall, we do see a bit of rain around New Zealand, around the top of the country as that low moves in over the next couple of days, and of course the other systems driving in west coast rain. Driest areas look to be northern parts of Southland going into Otago, parts of Canterbury, especially the southern half of Canterbury, and then around Manawatu, parts of Wanganui, Hawke's Bay, and up towards Gisborne, Tairāwhiti. Those are the driest parts of New Zealand over the next 7 days. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow, Wednesday, with our next New Zealand update. I'll see you then.